both Paladins banned away here. So Faeli will not have his even Paladin, and Burro as well, his even Paladin banned away. So that leaves the Token Druid, Death Rattle Hunter, and even Warlock for Faeli. And for Burro, the Mali Druid, the Death Rattle Hunter, and that Quest Rogue, which we've seen him love we've seen Pardub love players after that fact. It's going to be Token Druid versus the Death Rattle Hunter. So this does tend to favor the Token Druid, I would say. Do you agree?
Yes, I would definitely agree. Not quite to the extent I would have given it if you'd asked me a little while ago. The more I see the Hunter, the more I realize if you just curve out, just get a candle shot, just a couple of minions on board, and curve into a Witchwood Grizzly in particular, you can just quite easily dominate the board, stop them from going wide with Whispering Woods in particular. But when you have a hand like this for Faeli, which interesting, it's going to be interesting to see the way he takes it. He could just go for the curving out route, which is, I think, what we saw in his previous match in the quarterfinals, but it looks instead like he might just be going all in on the Whispering Woods to try and win the game in one fell swoop. This
is absolutely a matchup that you can Whispering Woods as early as possible.
I agree.
And just win the game because of it, especially if Faeli finds Soul of the Forest. You can Whispering Woods on turn 4, now turn 3, and then be able to back that up, hopefully. And his build of this Druid deck is a little bit unusual. It's not a Violet Teacher build. He's actually got 2 Saronite Chain Gangs and 2 Tar Creepers, so a little bit more anti-aggro.
Yeah, he's got the more, I call it the curvy version of the deck that just goes Tar Creeper into the Chain Gang, like you said. But interestingly, no Strong Shell Scavenger in the deck to be buffing those up, which is obviously what the deck looked like a little while ago before the Giggling Inventor nerf, because there were just a couple more taunts. So Faeli here clearly saying there's enough taunts to just curve out, but not enough to guarantee or warrant the Strong Shell Scavenger.
So Burro did pick up the Devilsaur Egg. He needs a little bit more, however. His hand is still quite heavy, really clunky, and nothing to activate this egg just yet. More importantly, nothing to deal with these wisps here, except for just the one with the candle shot. So 5 wisps going to survive.
Yeah, Hunter's Mark does a lot better against Violet Teacher than it does against Whispering Woods, it would seem. And, you know, Faeli played to exactly this, getting rid of the minions in his hand, just getting rid of the minions in his hand. He did not want to be curving out. He wanted to go in one big burst to try and close out the game. And while it's worked out pretty well, with 5 wisps left on the board at the start of his turn, he doesn't have much to benefit off of those wisps right now. No Soul of the Forest, Power of the Wild, Savage Roar, Branching Paths. Nothing.
So many things that could have just closed out this game for Faeli here, but it's not going to happen just yet. And Burro will have some pretty decent plays in the next couple of turns. Ziliax for 5 and then Deathstalker Rexar on turn 6. And if Faeli just goes for, say, another Whispering Woods without Soul of the Forest, Deathstalker Rexar are going to clear that right up. And then it's more difficult for Faeli to build up a board and back it up once his Whispering Woods are gone because he's not playing Violet Teacher.
It's a really tough turn here for Faeli, because if he had, you know, 1 or 2 more buffs in hand, I wouldn't hate seeing the play of Coin Spreading Plague into Tyrant just to completely dominate the board and try and win the next turn before Rexar can come down. But because of the fact that, you know, he still has none of those buff cards, he has to play it a bit slower here, except that the majority of the time, these wisps die before he can benefit off of having them on the board.
So Burro here has the option to clear up both the Arcane Tyrant and a Wisp if he chooses, but that's going to require the use of the Hunter's Mark. Or he could just clear up 2 Wisps with the Ziliax.
Unity. Precision.
Yeah, get the taunts in the way. Start breaking through this board.
So he's actually more worried about the Arcane Tyrant than he is about the individual Wisps, and I think that's because Faeli did not buff this board whatsoever last turn, so Burro can get a read that there's simply nothing there.
That is the salient point here, I think. If things could have gone wrong, they would have gone wrong. He feels like he's in the clear mostly just right now.
And certainly if he can land that Rexar onto this board next turn and have a lot of impact there, he will be in the clear for the next few turns. Because Faeli still failing to back up this board that he built.
Failing to back up the board. That was the correct reaction to that awful joke.
Chuckle, chuckle, ignore. Second flanking strike for Burro. Tar Creeper's going to survive, but I would think this has to be the Deathstalker XR now.
Yeah.
Every turn that you leave the Wisps up is just a little bit more time for Faeli to find that Soul of the Forest, and Burro can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's maybe closer than it seems, because the hand now for Burro isn't that good, but also just every turn that he's generating an extra zombie is an extra turn that he gets closer to Cave Hydra, or the infamous Bloat Bat that he could use to destroy another big board from Faeli.
Yeah, he's investing in his future hand by playing this Rexar quite early. And it's not like it was a low-value Rexar. It was very, very good. Yeah. It's just that he wasn't able to develop at the same time. So his board is still just these 2 unactivated eggs, which is a little bit unfortunate. But his next several turns are going to get substantially better because he can build beasts now. Faeli getting his Death Knight online as well, and he's drawn into Ultimate Infestation. Issue there being his hand is quite full, so if he's wanting to coin into UI on turn 9, he will need to get some of these cards out of his hand in order to not overdraw.
Tundra Rhino is quite a tempting option always, offer the Builder Beast option, and Stealth as well. We could see Burro just throwing down this Tundra Rhino there and just letting it sit there. He'll probably be under too much pressure to allow that play to happen, but it's definitely something to consider.
If he can... there's no way that this spider is getting cleared up by the wolf, so... the Rhino may be a bit of a risk. But with Stealth, might as well just leave that on the board for as long as you want.
As the play for Faeli now could very well just be another Whispering Woods thrown down onto the board, leading up into Coin Ultimate Infestation on the following turn. He probably wants to save that for a Soul of the Forest now, I think. It's probably a little bit too valuable of a card, especially given that he doesn't have Violet Teachers. So the ability to get a big board is actually quite limited.
He'll be very reliant on Spreading Plague if the second Whispering Woods doesn't win him the game. He has already played one of his Arcane Tyrants as well. So his post-UI reload is pretty much this Whispering Woods plus a Soul of the Forest, assuming he finds it.
Yep.
And then from there on, he has one more Saronite Chain Gang, one more Tar Creeper, and the Spreading Plagues. Which, if Burro is doing his job correctly, he's going to play tall instead of wide, and Spreading Plague isn't going to be able to get that much value.
You're correct. He can deny the Spreading Plague. I get the suspicion, though, however, that Faeli's turn of Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest should be enough. I think that will just win him the game on the next couple of turns, because at the moment he doesn't even need that. He's just winning the board. Yeah,
barring a Bloat Bat or Cave Hydra Beast from Burro, I don't think he's going to have a way to get through that woods. Is he playing a Mossy Horror?
He is playing a Mossy Horror.
Okay, so he has a way to get through one layer, but the second layer is the one that's going to kill him.
Yeah. Tempo to the extreme here is Burro's play, trying to just salvage this board before he's hit with just a Whispering Woods on these minions. Oh, sorry, just a Soul of the Forest on these minions alone.
Savage Roar finally turning up for Faeli, but he wants to get this Ultimate Infestation online.
My thoughts are plagued.
Yeah, if he had Soul of the Forest, I wouldn't hate looking at the option of Plague coin Soul of the Forest after trading in a couple of your minions here. But with the way it currently stands, I think this hand on its own needs a little bit of help to get the win.
I think coin UI is fine. If he finds that second Arcane Tyrant, he doesn't have to burn anything this turn.
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't,
so what?
Burning a card is not a big deal. He has 2 of everything relevant left in his deck.
Still no Soul of the Forest being found though here from Faeli.
That
quite surprising at this point. Yeah.
Well, if he does burn that first Soul of the Forest, things could be looking a bit grim because now Burro is hitting some very powerful turns. Picks up the Defender of Argus as well, which he can use to activate these eggs. Or just use to taunt up some big stuff to prevent lethal later on.
Yeah. This is getting weird because we have been focusing on the Soul of the Forest because it's been what has been needed to lock out this game for Faeli.
But is
it's
it
not needed
to win the game?
Exactly, exactly. He could very well take a risk with just Spreading Plague, just Soul of the Forest, just Whispering Woods. I always get them mixed up.
But the issue being he only has still the one Savage Roar in hand. That's it. He's got no branding
That's also
pass.
true. He has just missed out on every single one of the buff cards, and the Roar being burned is quite a blow.
But Burrow's gone with just the King Crush this turn to try and clean up the board. Very expensive, not incredibly impactful, and Faeli can just kill it off with an Armor Up and that Spellstone in hand. You build up 3 Scarabs from a Spreading Plague as well this turn.
A tangled web.
Which I expect we're going to see him do sooner rather than later. The board's not likely to get all that much bigger than this.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels pretty bad to be going for the Spreading Plague because as soon as they're cleared up, like if you use up both Spreading Plagues, it locks out the possibility of Plague into Soul of the Forest, which is very possibly how Faeli ends up setting up the winning board for this game.
He still does have second Plague available.
Yeah.
So first Plague here I think is okay, but this...
Yeah,
send the 5 damage to face. Okay.
The fact that 4 minions very possibly end up surviving on this turn makes it feel very, very valid.
If the 4 minions do survive, 8 damage on board already, an additional 10 from the Savage Roar, plus 3 from the Hero Power. So you are looking at a potential lethal if these minions survive.
Cave Hydra being picked up though for Burro. That is one of those minions we were talking about, that if it got Charge, Rush on this turn, who knows?
The issue though is if it gets Vicious Scalehide, it's Vile Bird Skitterer. That's what you need. I was just going to say, if it's Vicious Scalehide, it's not enough to get over the Scarabs, but the Vile Brood will kill all 3 of the Scarabs.
The Vile Brood killed everything that turn. It was 8 mana, wasn't it? To be able to play it.
Yeah, he could have just hit into the Scarab in the middle, killed off the Ghoul. Decided not to go for it, though. I wonder why that is. Maybe Burro thinks he needs that lifesteal. I mean, that's 9 life he's going to get back from attacking with that Hydra, but he could have just killed 3 minions outright.
This is much more defensive. Obviously, setting up the taunts now and getting the lifesteal, like you mentioned.
I think he can afford to be a bit offensive, not defensive, especially since he has a Tundra Rhino in hand and 2 Devil Swords waiting to be broken out of their eggs.
That's true. Yeah, this does set up very nicely for breaking the eggs and charging the Devil Swords next turn.
But like, how defensive can this hunter really be against a token druid? He's gotten through the first wave of wisps. He's seen Ultimate Infestation, so he knows there's another board coming that he's just not going to be able to deal with. And this Cave Hydra ultimately doesn't help that.
So Faeli keeping up here very happily with his plan of just developing onto the board.
He hasn't even had to play second wisp yet.
Yep.
Sarnate Chain Gang is doing enough work.
Oof, we can clearly see though this Hydra could do some pretty good work here.
Yeah. You end up clearing up both Saranites and a Scarab. Another Rhino.
Oh, that is a nice way to get things rolling. He maybe needs to start thinking, as I was going to say, about the Scavenging Hyena just to move towards lethal, because 1 Rhino is enough. It's kind of expensive. It's doing the job of charging out the rest of your minions already.
Faeli's at 39.
Yeah, it's looking very.
This would have to be a very big hyena to win the game. And I just don't think Burro's had a turn where he's felt like he can expend an entire turn to get this Rhino down, and I don't think this is the turn either.
Yeah, he could kill off both his eggs onto the chain gangs, which would then mean he could charge the Devil Swords into some of the other minions.
Okay, so he's going to use the Hunter's Mark and actually kill off the Ghoul instead of going for a plan where he saves the Hunter's Mark but takes less damage off of the board. I like this.
Yeah, this turn works out pretty well because it means he actually protects his Hydra, which probably was his plan all along. He doesn't want to send it out to die. He wants to keep it alive.
Gain him even more life. The Vilebird Hydra would have had the same health total, but would have been significantly more expensive. So at what point does Faeli just feel like he has to go for it? Because both Soul of the Forest are now looking like they're in the bottom 10-ish cards of his deck.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much more time he has before he just has to rip this woods.
Yeah, so I was looking now at Swipe, Savage, or Power of the Wild, and I think it's a fair bit south of lethal. It's not even at the point where he can set up Ultimate Infestation lethal, I believe.
Nah, the eggs are still too healthy.
Yeah, I count it as 20 damage, I think, it can go through to face. Because he would have to swipe the 3 health egg and the 1 health egg would die. So instead, because he cannot get the lethal, he opts for clearing off the board, which looks pretty good to me. He keeps his minions healthy, and the damage carries on piling through to face.
Even is able to fit in that hero power, taking the Saronite over the egg instead of the Scarab, because he would rather have the additional health onto that Saronite. The Hydra is cleared, and yet again, Faeli has the board, and he looks a little stressed. Taking a seat back in his chair, taking a deep breath there. We saw him not even able to look at his screen in game number 5 in his previous series.
That's true.
Against Dowido. This means a lot to him, for sure. He's been in the finals a couple times before, been in the semifinals a couple times before. Yeah. That's a bloat bat with Lifesteal and Rush.
That is a bloat bat. I mean, he could even go... Oh, no, wait. Bloat bat, Echo, Rush.
It would be 6 mana.
Yeah. Very almost the perfect combo.
That's good enough.
You take those.
Enough of those, and Burro can beat Whispering Woods and Soul of the Forest.
Yeah, the fact that it has Lifesteal and Rush means that he could go Bloat Bat, Death Rattle Activator like Play Dead, and then rush it in off to die.
Yeah, he does need it to die.
It would have to be able to die, exactly. So just into a board of Whispering Woods and Soul of the Forest would not do the job.
So looking for a Play Dead or a Terror Scale Stalker to be able to activate that. Still no Soul of the Forest for Faeli.
Still nothing.
And no branching pads either.
Yeah, like if he goes Savage Roar here, or like, you know, Savage Roar, he can go Power of the Wild, actually, it still dies to the 4-attack Grizzly. He can't just let his guys die.
Bottom 9 cards, he's got 2 pads, 2 souls, and an Ultimate Infestation. That's 5 of them.
Like, as a play on this turn, actually, I don't hate going for Nourish for draw, trade everything into the Grizzly, Hero Power down the thing, the Spider Bomb, sorry, not the thing. It's my job to say words.
Yeah, do the thing, hit the thing, hit him in the thing,
exactly.
and win the game.
Because then you can draw yourself into a Soul of the Forest, and next turn, you just go Whispering Soul of the Forest, and that is your win condition. I think that's, yeah, this is what he's going for. I like this line.
Faeli gets to get the Arcane Tyrant down here as well after Hero Power. He does find the Soul of the Forest, the Cenarius as well.
I really like this play. I think there was, like, you know, some wanting to develop onto the board that turn, or to buff up his minions to get a bit of attack phase. Just go for one big board. That's all you need.
He's been buying his time turn after turn to try to set up for this perfect opportunity to just blow out the game in 2 turns. And I think he has found it. Nothing here helps Burro.
Yeah, that costs 6 mana, so he can only rush in 1 minion there. Like you said, everything's just awkward. Even the Bloat Bat that we were talking about is the best possible option he could get. Yeah?
He just can't kill it.
It's all right, yeah. Doesn't beat a board of wisps and forests and treants and things.
Tracking into the Katharina, but now he's only got 7 mana because he hero powered first.
He might go for Terror Scale Stalker for the combo of going Bloat Bat plus Terror Scale.
Well,
maybe it's a little optimistic though.
Yeah, he probably would have liked to go for that tracking first to see if he found the Katharina in the first place and decide whether he wants to hero power then.
No, that is a good spot.
But Faeli has finally found the Soul of the Forest, so this is going to be the turn.
Thanks, buddy.
He's working with us.
Yeah, everything through to the face. It has to be a Death Rattle activator right now for Burro to be able to clear this, because there is the Tyrant he can sacrifice into.
Oh my god, that's a full clear.
That's a full clear, or like it leaves a 2-2. Oh no, wait, if that.
No, it's just a
full clear.
You play dead. No, it leaves a 2-2. Wait, no, because you traded and then the death rattle activates.
Then it dies.
It's done, and he goes to 30.
Oh.
And now Faeli has nothing left.
That's so
That play
sick.
dead off the top, and that's after Burro took the Kathrina over the Terror Scale Stalker. He did not take the Terror Scale.
Oh. Faeli's face, look at that nod. He knows what's up.
Wow.
And if Faeli had traded in his Arcane Tyrant into the Shimmering Courser and then gone for Whispering Soul, it would have played around exactly this. It's an incredibly specific combo to play around, but Faeli could have played around this.
It would not have played around Bloatbat plus Stone Tusk Boar? No, it would have.
It would
have, because the only things on the board would have had one attack. And that was reasonably...
Oh, no, sorry, it would not have played around that, because he could go for the Death Rattle Activator first, then run it into a 2-2, and then the 3-2 board would have died.
That's if there is a Death Rattle.
Yeah.
Okay, but the only way that he loses the game is Bloatbat combo plus a Death Rattle Activator.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yes.
And even still, if he trades over the Tyrant and there's a Hunter's Mark in Burrow's hand,
yeah, the
Hunter's Mark then means that even just Wisps on the board would allow the Bloatbat to trigger.
Oh, I don't know.
Now, Cenarius, I don't think, beats a Kathrina.
Like, Faeli, it was such a specific thing to play around, but
when you're that far ahead...
that far ahead, exactly. He just never lost.
That's when all of the possible combinations of how does this go horribly wrong for me start racking through your brain, and that's the one that you settle on.
Yeah.
So that's the one that you play around.
And Burro as well, I get the suspicion that in an exact opposite fashion, when he's that far behind, does he ever think that Kathrina wins him the game? I wonder if he should have taken the Death Rattle Activator in the Terror Scale Stalker the turn prior, just for the opportunity that he kills it off. I mean, he probably was expecting Faeli to play around it by killing off his own Arcane Tyrant. I don't know, it's such a complicated couple of turns, but Faeli has absolutely got the bad end of the deal.
I don't think that Kathrina was necessary for Burro to win the game because of the Deathstalker Rexar hero power. So had he taken the Terror Scale, he plays into, well, the first step of winning the game, which is clearing up the board of Wisps and Treants. And then after that, you address the, how do I actually close out the game?
Like, obviously, the other way he could do it, even if there had been a bunch of Treants, he could have gone Bloatbat, and then Deathstalker, and then Death Rattle Activator, and then Hunter's Mark his own thing. But I think both Hunter's Marks have been played at this point anyway. I don't know. Trying to figure it out.
It's very possible.
As even now, it looks to me like Faeli is somehow managing to pull back this small resemblance of a board, but...
Spreading Plague plus Soul of the Forest last turn.
Yeah. Mossy Horror leaves a 5/8 and 2 2/2s, which could both just be traded into.
So at most, there's 2 2/2s left on the board for Faeli.
Or a 5/8.
Yes, or a 5/8. And then he has Branching Path, Savage Roar, Power of the Wild. Which, in that case, is just better to hero power.
Yeah,
not enough is the point we're getting to. Better to have the 5/8, actually, than the 2 Treants.
Yes. Just don't want to give him any kind of a wide board at all.
And I will say, I don't think Violet Teachers would have made much of a difference in this matchup because Faeli had a really wide boards throughout the game with the use of the Saronite chain gangs.
Yeah,
they sort of did the job of the Teachers.
You're probably right. There could have been the Hunter's Mark probably would have dealt with a Violet Teacher before it had got much work done anyway.
How does Faeli build a board anymore? He can Power of the Wild for 3/2s. That gets shut down immediately.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Soul of the Forest left.
It's actually insane how little of the Token Druid deck does anything.
Like, it's all just methods of getting to Whispering Wood Soul of the Forest.
Exactly, yeah. Fatiguing this deck is the easiest thing in the world.
You literally just need 2 copies of Warpath.
Yeah.
That's it. Game's over.
Or a rushing lifesteal bloatbat plus a playdead.
It's a bit more fun, isn't it?
Yeah. That will also get the job done.
It is amazing with how many beasts there are, how often Hunter players do pull that combination against aggro.
It's true.
It happens really frequently.
And that's the benefit of Burro slamming the Deathstalker Rexar on turn 6 as soon as he could get it down. Because like you pointed out, it gave him the opportunity to get that rolling, as he does find lethal with the Rhino and the Candle Shot after an insane game of Hearthstone, which, I don't know, I'll have to ask the pro players' opinion afterwards. Maybe that was just a misstep from Faeli when he was basically locked into a victory in that game. But Burro does bring it up 1-0.
There absolutely, undeniably was a different way that Faeli could have navigated that turn to play around specifically the Bloatbat and just a Death Rattle activator and not a Hunter's Mark being there.
Yup.
But it would have then have had to have been Bloatbat plus Vicious Scalehide and ignoring the potential of Bloatbat plus Stone Tusk Boar. It's a lot to consider in a very short period of time for Faeli, but that definitely was a matchup that he needed to win here. Now he has to counter the Hunter with his Warlock or his own Hunter deck.
Yeah, and I would say that is obviously an even matchup in the mirror and a pretty bad matchup. I personally do not like even Warlock up against the Death Rattle Hunter. Obviously, Devo or acolytes of the even Warlock will argue it back the other way, but as we can see here from Faeli, he thinks this is his best shot in the mirror.
Yeah, I tend to think that the Hunter is favored slightly over the Warlock, and Faeli thinking maybe he just needs that Warlock later on. The Warlock against the Quest Rogue I think is better than the Hunter against the Quest Rogue.
Yeah.
I'd rather be slamming Giants on turn 3, so he will hold on to that deck, try to get a win here, and then maybe need the Warlock to close things out against the Druid and the Rogue is my thought. But you can see just as soon as you are down 1 game, how much pressure is put on your decks to perform.
Faeli here, really not sure whether to keep the Rexar, because even though usually you just want to dig as aggressively as you can for Egg and Keleseth in the starting hand, I think the fact that he had tracking there is what really threw him off, because he's anticipating such a high chance to find, or I shouldn't say such a high chance, but a higher chance of finding them anyway with the tracking that he throws back the Rexar just to be greeted by him once again.
Just ends up finding it, and even though he threw it in the opening hand, he's going to have to take it to equalize things if Burro has Deathstalker Rexar himself. Unfortunately, that means we don't get to see Swamp King Dread hit the board in all of this game. It is the one spicy tech that Faeli's got in this list. Most people in that 6th beast spot have been running Savannah Highmane or Charged Devilsaur, but Faeli's elected to go for that Swamp King Dread. A little bit of counter potential against Shudderwalk Shaman.
Yeah, I don't mind Swamp King Dread. It's fine.
This is a heavy, heavy hand for Faeli. No eggs here. Burro working with a little bit more in the early turns. Keleseth into Shaw can be quite good.
Yeah, it's all right. Faeli is really close to being able to deal with that if he can just pick up the good old Candle Shot to go in combination with the Hunter's Mark, or a Spider Bomb, to be fair, to go with the Play Dead. As Burro finds his own Hunter's Mark into Candle Shot there. I do actually quite like, it's interesting I didn't comment, I didn't see it at the time, but Burro's holding back of Candle Shot on turn 1, because I think his thinking is, what is more likely here? I kill something off in the early turns, which is pretty much only Keleseth, or I get Ooze on turn 3. And by holding it back here, it means he's opened up the 2 mana kill of Hunter's Mark into Candle Shot in 1 turn. I think this is actually a pretty nice play here.
I think it is much more likely that he gets oozed there on turn 3. So, really nice hold back by Burro, knowing that that Candle Shot has a lot more value in this matchup in the later turns with Hunter's Mark than it does in those early couple of turns. But still, Faeli having to Hero Power on 2, Hero Power on 3. Burro sees this as an opportunity to get a little bit more aggressive on board, so he's going to go with that Coin Shaw. If Faeli answers with his own Shaw, then Flanking Strike does just clear it up.
Oh man, this hand's so bad.
It's
the only
really
beast
horrible.
left in the deck is the one Witchwood Grizzly, because he's already discarded off the tracking the Swamp King Dread. He can do literally nothing really until turn 5, because I mean this mind control tech doesn't do anything. It just dies to the flanking strike.
Faeli is going to need to have some really fantastic beasts to build this game.
And he is going to have to know exactly where to find them.
Because it sure is not in his hand right now. This is the most awkward of awkward Hunter starts. And Burro can easily clear up this Grizzly. Does not have to worry for a second about cube plus a play dead on turn 6.
Doesn't even have to really worry about mind control tech anymore. Like, we could just see Hunter's Mark into flanking strike here. I wouldn't hate it, to be honest. Sacrificing Hunter's Mark, sure.
Yeah, play around the mind control tech, even though one has already been seen from Faeli.
Yeah.
And just double checking the list, there is actually only the one in the list.
Okay.
So from now on, he does not have to be concerned with going too wide. And there would have been the cube play dead if he hadn't cleared up that Grizzly.
Yes, whatever his play was on that turn, as long as it involved clearing up the Grizzly, I didn't hate it. And there we go.
Okay.
The up egg.
I was going to say,
Burro.
Burro's hand was looking a little bit dry now, but that egg changes things dramatically. Faeli is going to have a really hard time sticking anything for his cube play dead, which is the real power play that he's got in hand that Burro does not. But Burro firmly has the board. Faeli only at 17 life, actually.
Can now just go for egg Terrascale play dead. I think he kind of has to, right?
And then next turn he can Katharina out a Grizzly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Maybe at that point he finds another Terrascale or another play dead and can cube the Grizzly. I'm seeing a line here for Faeli. It's not impossible.
Yeah,
He's taking a lot of damage this turn, though.
That is the thing. That is what I wanted to bring up, is he might be thinking, I'm taking so much damage that my only route back into this game is building a beast on this turn, and that is what he is going to be going for. Can he find lifesteal, removal, taunt, anything just to try and stabilize this position? Because I think it might actually be a good bit of damage control that he realizes that egg just isn't good enough. He can still go egg into play dead if he has to, but he needs a miracle here off of the Builder Beast.
He's decided it's not good enough. He was going to take 15 damage on the backswing no matter what. But Emerald Hive Queen is not going to win him the game. Looking like Burro is going to be able to close this one out.
Yeah, 15 damage right now, which means Katharina is locked out.
16 actually.
Oh,
the
sorry,
egg's
okay.
got one attack. That was my bad. I underestimated that egg.
You are correct. So 1 damage off lethal here is good old Burro, which again, Katharina into Grizzly does absolutamente nada, because Hero Power would just close out the game. He's just wondering, what could this be? What beast on earth could stop me from winning this game?
Burro is not throwing away his steady shot here, setting up for the 2-turn lethal play.
That was the time to call him Burr. That would have been a good Hamilton joke.
I went Burr.
Oh, right, yeah. Like the kids call him in the rap.
Aaron Burr, give us a verse. Drop some damage to the face, because holy crap, this game's been fast.
It has indeed.
Faeli had no chance, and there's even the Grizzly off the top to add insult to injury. Katharina will not even pull a beast now.
Yeah, just going through the motions here is Faeli, and Burro is going to be going up 2 games to 0. 1 game away, from advancing through to the finals here at Dreamhack Winter. And the finals that I was very much expecting to see of Boston up against Faeli looks like it might be an impossibility if Faeli cannot get a clean sweep 3-0 victory now with his even Warlock.
He has quite an uphill battle here. Not favored against the Hunter, but against the Rogue, I think he's okay.
Yeah, I'd call it close to 50.
And against the Malagos Druid, he's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
So get over this first hurdle and then worry about the next 2. But this Hunter looking like...
Yeah, my giddy laughing at Burro's hand here. This is a hand that even Warlock very rarely beats. Hunter's Mark Spider Bomb just to deal with any big threats that come down. Obviously the Keleseth as well, just for salt in the wound. Salt being the operative word there.
Yes. Oh. Just give the guy a candle shot and give Faeli a drink at this point.
Yeah. You know, I'm thoroughly
Wow.
disappointed. I've been trying to think of a Hamilton joke for the past 2 minutes, and I have nothing.
To be fair, it just completely went over my head that you were making a Fantastic Beasts joke back in that
Yeah.
game. I just missed that 100%.
Okay, hear me out.
Wait, I haven't actually seen this board yet. That's fun.
Oh,
Okay, I'm listening.
I know it's stupid, and it was the correct play to not do it, but just ripping the demonic project there and sniping off the Keleseth or the egg would have been a pretty cool play. It would have been an incorrect play as well, but I still kind of wanted to see it.
It would have been cool.
Yeah.
Can't even find a mountain giant, Derek.
Yeah.
What is the world coming to when an even warlock doesn't have a mountain giant on turn 4? I don't want to live in this world.
Like, it doesn't even matter that Burro had the Hunter's Mark and the Spider Bomb or whatever, because there's nothing to kill off.
He even went so far as to pitch that Spider Bomb in the mulligan.
Yeah, which, I don't know. I can see the thinking for, because his hand was a little bit too reactive, I suppose you could argue, with Hunter's Mark and Spider Bomb. But I don't know. They're both very, very good cards in the matchup. But I suppose if you're going to use either in the early turns, Hunter's Mark is the one to use at the start of the game before you get hit with a Skulking Geist, which can be pretty detrimental to Hunter's game plan, actually.
Yeah. Twilight Drake. It's no mountain giant, but it's something.
It's something respectable here. Like, even though the flanking strike could come in here just to take away the Spellbreaker there, that's a perfect Hellfire board there for Faeli. So Burro is very rapidly trying to find any other line of play that doesn't involve losing his entire board to Hellfire, at which point he's not even in that good of a spot, I would argue, somehow.
No, his hand has ended up being a little bit too reactive. Very quickly, though, this could change in his favor with, say, a Carnivorous Cube and a Play Dead, or a Kathrina at any point in time before turn 8, pretty much.
Oh, yes.
But Burro has been very, very concerned with the early development from the Warlock, so much so that he's had to play catch up a little bit. And now if he had another Play Dead, for instance, he would be firmly ahead.
Yeah, he would go quickly from playing catch up to just playing Mustard for the rest of the game.
I'd relish the thought.
Why do you always win? You're too good at words and stuff.
Hey, there's Rexar.
Yeah, 2 options you definitely want there, and you take Rexar. It's Rexar, but the cube has a lot of merit here. It's a 5/7, it kills off the egg when he doesn't have a Death Rattle activator. He's thinking about it.
Rexar just wins games, though.
It's Rexar, yeah.
That's a feels bad man tracking right there, but Rexar wins games.
Ooh.
Ooh.
That is a pretty timely Skulking Geist there. Like I was talking about,
That is incredibly important.
Yeah, the Hunter's Mark hasn't been used. One Play Dead has been used, right, to get the Devil Saw. But losing that removal from Burro's hand, more importantly than from his deck, means he's in a pretty rough spot.
Both Hunter's Mark and second Play Dead are going to be gone here. Not to mention Faeli is going to be winning on the board at that point. He still doesn't have the Giants left, but he does have the Twilight Drake in hand, and he's every turn building towards that Blood Reaver Gul'dan, which will just not secure the late game, but really, really help. However, that is the Kathrina draw for Burro.
Yeah, some good news for both players. Faeli would obviously have been over the moon to see a card disappearing from Burro's hand, which it was kept off the mulligan. It hasn't been played on an egg. That is a Hunter's Mark. Faeli can definitely make that read of what he sniped away with the Skulking Geist. But for Burro, like you said, Rexar into Kathrina in the next couple of turns. Let's go.
Faeli can shut down the egg with second Spellbreaker if he's worried about cube shenanigans. But the real question is, how does he beat Kathrina? A Grizzly comes out and Black Knight is the answer. So he's got that checked.
Good point. Good point.
And he's actually just going to choose to get aggressive here. Maybe he can beat Kathrina by going a little bit faster.
I think that's his real best shot here to have a chance in this game. because in terms of value, it's so difficult to beat a Katharina, especially if they're tossing around cubes or Terrascale Stalkers as well. But if you can go quick, make it so that you Black Knight their Witchwood Grizzly, as you so astutely pointed out, Faeli could just be in a good spot. And who knows, maybe from Faeli, we just see him rip the Demonic Project, which would just have a 50-50 to snipe off the Katharina. It's going into turn 8.
Honestly, he's got much better things to do on turn 8.
Yeah.
But he put this card in the deck for a reason. Going into turn 8 for Burro, the best target would be that Katharina, and he does have a 50-50 to hit it with Demonic Project now.
Yes.
Is Faeli going to see that as being an option? Is he going to want to do that, or just more likely to drop something like Twilight Drake, second Hooked Reaver, because it's so strong on the board? He even does have a jacked up Spellstone in hand as well.
There's a lot of plays here, man. We could see double 4-drop, like you pointed out. We could see Black Knight would not be ridiculous on this turn, just to kill a 5-5.
Spellstone to kill the 5-5, Spellbreaker onto the egg, and
also
then he could push 13 damage to face.
We could even just see Bone Mare. Like, Bone Mare's just a very high-statted minion that gets to push damage to face.
I think what we're trying to get at is his hand is really good.
Yeah, he's got a lot of options here.
That's what you get when you're drawing 2 cards per turn.
He's going with the Spellbreaker instead, taking the play that he knows is pretty good. This is a strong play rather than the maybe potential chance to get rid of the Katharina. And I think this is probably right. His tempo here is so high that he should be able to, maneuver his way through a Katharina anyway. And here it is. A Witchwood Grizzly would be amazing news for Faeli.
Oh,
but it's King Crush.
It's the king. But it's a 9-9 that has to go into a 4-drop. And that 4-drop's coming back on turn 10.
I mean, it's a 9-9 that costs 0 mana that had to go into it.
Semantics.
And so now Faeli will be looking very heavily at just killing off the Katharina and insta-sniping off the Grizzly with the Black Knight.
He would have to give up his entire board other than that Black Knight, though. I could play down the Acidic Swamp Ooze as well.
Yeah. It plays around Death Rattle activators, of which he knows there are few left, actually, to be fair. He doesn't know that 1 cube went off the tracking. He knows there are no play deads left, and he knows there's 1 Terrascale left.
So many possibilities.
But he's not taking the risk.
Nope. Both Spellbreakers gone. And this could have been Charged Devilsaur.
From his perspective.
As far as Faeli knows, it's a 2 out of 3 that this is a Grizzly.
He will take those odds. Because even if it misses... Oh no, the Devilsaur would have been buffed up. I was going to say he could go 5 attack Spellstone plus Guy, but it's 1 damage off working there.
So maybe there was a little bit of risk involved.
Yes, there was.
But now Burro needs to start making use of that hero power. He played Rexar a couple turns ago, has not utilized the Build-A-Beast hero power just yet. But he's running out of stuff now. So, time to do what Rexar does best.
Cheaper options tend to be better off of Deathstalker Rexar. So he's definitely going to be tempted by the Raptor Hatchling. Maybe he just wants to go for a burn plan through Life Drinker, but on consideration, I think you just take the cheap option.
He had an egg on the board that he could have buffed up, but with Houndmaster Shaw, something for 3 mana is actually perfect here. And with the Stubborn Gastropod, Black Knight dies alongside.
And so now Bone Mare on this turn makes for a gorgeous trade into the Houndmaster Shaw.
The Blood Reaver Gul'dan brings back 2 Hooked Reavers and a Homunculus, I believe.
There's still more options. Again, on this turn, we could see Twilight Drake Spellstone is a fine play on this turn. It puts a nice amount of minion pressure on the board. I think it's Bone Mare on this turn, though.
The Bone Mare is just so clean. You know the Hunter's marks are gone.
Yeah.
Spider Bomb hasn't been seen just yet, but it would require an additional Death Rattle activator.
And even though we were actively laughing when we saw the starting hand for Burro, we thought Faeli didn't have a chance to pull this back. He's winning this game now.
Well, the thing is, when Faeli did not have any actual pressure, Burro also had nothing he could do in the early turns.
Yes.
Because his entire hand was built to respond to the pressure from Faeli.
Good point. But either way, he is not out of it yet. Both players have a very real chance of taking this game. Rexar can do incredible things.
Yes, he can. Mountain Giant on turn 11. A little slow to the party here, but it's worked out okay for Faeli. I think this is probably just 2 big minions on the board. Or the Mountain Giant and Spellstone down the Beetle to try to keep the Acidic Swamp Ooze alive. Faeli could even fit in the Vulgar Homunculus with that play.
Just anything that goes wide on the board is a play I like.
Anything that results in this Beetle dying and minions still being on the board for Faeli is good.
Oh, yes.
And he will have been tracking, so he will know that there is no beast currently in hand for Burro that he's built. So it is a very unlikely chance that he finds something with a Bloat Bat, but it's not impossible.
And he gets Cave Hydra, which is obviously good, and Stealth is a good consolation prize considering he couldn't get Rush or Charge. But it is slow, and he is tanking so much damage on this turn.
26 damage on the board for Faeli.
Mamma mia.
29 with the Hellfire. And conveniently, Burrow's at 29 health, so he's just going to have to send in that Charged Devil Sword to an Acidic Swamp Ooze.
And you can probably just quite happily send everything phase and play Gul'dan, I think, on this turn.
That's my thoughts exactly. Faeli goes up to 14. Taunts in the way. Board full of minions.
Yeah. Setting up not necessarily for lethal through a board clear if there is some kind of poisonous Bloat Bat shenanigans. But it is so likely that Faeli wins this game. He's already lost the first game of this series to nonsense that came through Rexar. But Burro knows the first option was not Bloat Bat. This game is over. Faeli has a win on the table.
Even if there was Bloat Bat there were 2 Vulgar Homunculus on the board for Faeli, so there would have been no way to kill off that Bloat Bat. Faeli, by the skin of his teeth, is able to take that matchup. And now he has 2 that look a little bit easier for the Warlock. He's got the Quest Rogue and the Mali Druid to go up against. From Burro's perspective, he has 2 chances that are slightly unfavored for him, but that still puts him in a good spot in this series.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would even argue that Mali Druid could definitely be put as a favorite if it's piloted by some of the best Malagos Druid players.
I agree.
I wouldn't necessarily put Burro in that camp because the bar is set so high with some of the Malagos Druid play we've seen here at Dreamhack Winter, but it's still a very winnable matchup in my opinion.
All right, Burro bringing out the Quest Rogue first. And Faeli able to find a Mountain Giant in the opening hand this time around. Very necessary in this matchup because you need to apply as much pressure as you possibly can before Vanish is going to be in play and before the Crystal Core has been activated.
And this hand for Faeli is just looking nice. I like every card in his hand. I think that Giant is obviously the linchpin of this strategy, the cornerstone. But if it gets frozen, you Spellbreaker it. If he plays Wax Elemental, you Spellbreaker it. Every single eventuality, aside from Vanish, I think is covered with this hand.
He's got the big stuff and the support for the big stuff.
Yeah. Like me and Fal. I'm the big stuff. He supports me.
He stands on the sideline and says,
Exactly.
Yeah, Derek, you got this.
Exactly.
What a sweet relationship.
As Faeli is pining over this hand, wishing that El Gigante could come down a turn earlier. But you know what, mate? You're going to have to do with a 3-mana 8/8.
Possibilities.
As it looks like he's maybe considering curving Sun Fury into Coin Drake. Yeah.
I quite like Giant into Drake, or Giant into Spellbreaker.
I too am quite partial.
I just, Drakes have 4 attack, right? And the Giants have 8. So it takes 2 Drakes to deal the same damage as 1 Giant.
Checks out.
Therefore, Giant is just twice as good.
By that metric, what is the best card?
Isn't there a 30/30?
The Darkness? Or
He's a 2020.
oh, the Forbidden one? The Awoken one?
Yeah.
I know the one you mean. Blood of the Ancient one.
Yes,
the Ancient
from Blood
one.
of the Ancient one.
That's
That guy.
the best card.
That's the best card.
As Burro here is off to a respectable start, actually. The fact that he kept back the Shadow Step, while questionable in modern Quest Rogue, because now that it is, well, it's been this way for a long time now, but now that it is 5 minions that have to be played rather than 4, Shadow Step goes down in power level quite substantially. But when you hit the Novice Engineer, it's a really nice way to just keep turboing through your deck.
Yeah, and he really kind of lucked out by hitting the Novice off of the Mimic Pod, because he needs to find Vanish as quickly as he possibly can. And I actually was having this discussion a little bit with Lorinda yesterday, I think. Ziliax has found its way into the Quest Rogue, but in that spot, you could also make an argument in matchups like this for Vile Spine Slayer to have some additional single target removal, because the Quest Rogue really relies very heavily on Vanish to get anything actually off of the board.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it would be quite as good as Ziliax, but
I mean,
it is a something.
It's something to consider. You have to get weird with Quest Rogue now because it just dies. You have to have weird defensive options. Like I've seen Corpse Taker builds, I've seen the Ziliax builds, like you mentioned.
He's going to try for sharding as much as he possibly can, freezing all of these minions.
I hope you like my invention.
But with the Spellbreakers in hand for Faeli, the freezes are not going to stick.
Yeah. And that prep is so nearly good if he can find himself a Vanish, which is why he's drawing so heavily through his deck. I think this is the way to go, because he could make decent plays with the minions he has in hand, just throwing them out. He needs to be a little bit more
aggressive.
Aggressive, yeah. Optimistic, trying to find that Vanish as soon as he can.
Oh, if you're sure.
So 2 more means of cycle in hand for Burro, looking to complete the quest off of the Novice Engineer, but falling a little bit short on that avenue as well for right now.
And Burro opting not to play the Wax Elemental, I would imagine because he's more afraid of Defile than he is of Spellbreaker. But if he had played that, this Giant would not be connecting face on this turn. Whereas now for Faeli, while he won't necessarily go for it because he does want to clear off the Glacial Shard very aggressively, I expect to see Silence on the Giant, push definitely the Giant face, and then maybe the Drake as well. He's got another Spellbreaker. That is going to trick Burro in a pretty big way.
What does he want to send this Drake into? Maybe that's Shard?
The Shard, yeah. I think it's Shard or face every time, and I think I like going face. The fact that he has the second Spellbreaker, it is going to trip up Burro in a pretty major way, but the pickup of exactly Vanish there is going to keep Burro in this game.
Exactly what Burro needed here. He can even Novice Engineer prep Vanish, and will that be his 4th or his 5th Novice Engineer that he puts in hand?
That would be the 4th. So I think you go prep Vanish first because you'd rather have the minion in play for the quest.
Well, no, but he needs the Novice to come back with the Vanish so he can play it for the 5th time.
Oh,
so
would it not go back to his hand if he doesn't do it first? He sacrifices one off. I think this gets it back.
Oh, you're right. There's the one on the board. Duh.
Yes, yeah.
Duh. No, yeah, that's 5.
I really liked Faeli's plan there. I think it usually works out so nicely for him.
But so much of this matchup comes down to the Warlock just having to YOLO damage to face and then hope that they can close out the game with the last couple points. Burro picked up that Vanish the exact correct time, but we do have to note, he took the strategy of bouncing the Novice Engineers because he knew that he had to find the Vanish. As much as it looked like that was a fortunate draw off the top of the deck, everything that he did for the last 4 turns built up to finding that card.
That is a good point. I know it's not going to happen. I'm kind of expecting a quest burn this game. Just every time I see Novice Engineer being completed with the quest with like an 8-9 card hand. Yeah, it won't happen. It won't happen. It's fine.
I mean, he can just play the Novice, complete the quest, and well, 3, 6.
He'd be fine, wouldn't he?
9. Yes, it'd be 10.
Okay, so he just plays it. It's fine. A cruel part of me
wants to see Burro fall on his face.
It could be anyone there. I just want to see a quest burn. It's just a fun time for all the family.
That's fair.
But again, I've liked the way that Burro's been playing this series a fair bit.
As long as Burro does not play that Mimic Pod first, before playing the Novice Engineer, then he will get the quest.
Yes.
Can't play the quest this turn without running the risk of dying. Unless he were to Glacial Shard on that Mountain Giant at the same time.
Oh yeah, he knows the Spellbreaker's in hand. Yeah, you're correct. Because, like, if he didn't... Like, even if there's a Spellbreaker there, he's not dead if he just goes Novice quest. Because he has the Taunt in the way, which means only 8 damage would be connecting even with a Spellbreaker after the trade.
Yeah, because the Novice Engineer goes over. And it is still 1 mana away from Spellbreaker plus Hellfire, so Burro knows that he is safe this turn. And we do see Valera the Hollow and Vicious Scalehide in hand with Zola the Gorgon and Glacial Shard. How is Faeli going to connect these final 2 points of damage? It's going to be a lot more than 2 very soon.
Oh, it's just one. It's
just 1 mana off lethal.
Yeah. But it's... He has the silence for so close to lethal here. And next turn, like, Hellfire plus another silence maybe could get it done, but he has to be afraid of just dying himself. As we can see, if he just silences and goes face and doesn't put up any defensive measures, he is just dead. He will be expecting that as well.
Just 1 source of damage would be the end of the game.
Oh, I suppose Black Knight as well allows him to remove the damage as well.
Just dead.
That's just going to be it.
Plus Zola the Gorgon. That is game, and that is the series. Burro is going to the finals. He will be going up against Pardub for the Dreamhack Winter 2018 Championship title. Faeli falling just a little bit short yet again, but I will say, I'm impressed by Burro.
I liked a lot of what I saw there. The